Welcome to the Back to Health podcast, where we share inspirational stories of hope to help you reclaim your health. If you're suffering from a chronic condition and have been given little to no hope, if you've been told that there's nothing wrong with you, but you know there definitely is something wrong, or if you're just trying to be preventative and want to know how to reclaim your health, then this podcast is for you. I can't wait to share today's episode. Hello. Welcome to the Back to Health podcast, and I'm your host, Roshani Mahendran. My guest today is the lovely Charlene Valentine. She's a holistic nutritionist turned mindset, success, and life coach for ambitious women. Her own disordered eating and anxiety issues triggered her to deep dive into holistic health and the mind-body connection. Her passion pivoted when she discovered how powerful the mind is in regards to our physical health, and so she went on to pursue an NLP certification and learnt more about our subconscious programming. Through this, she's been able to heal her disordered eating, transform her mindset, and help other women change too. So she's here on the podcast today to share her wisdom. Welcome to the show. Hey, Charlene, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Roshani. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's so exciting to sort of dive into so many different aspects of health. And your story really hit a note with me, because I think sometimes we can think that certain diagnoses or certain diseases like can be bigger than others, but actually like every story has an equally inspirational sort of like angle and learning and growth, and they're
Mhm.
equally as challenging, but just from different angles, if that makes sense. So I'd
Mhm.
love to sort of start right at the beginning as to how you found yourself in a position with your eating disorder, and sort of what events you felt led up to that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Great. So, when I was about, I think it was like 15 or 16 years old, I was all of a sudden became so interested in health and wellness. I think it just was becoming something that was so mainstream. And a lot of women my age were really interested in eating for, body image. And so I kind of tend to lean more towards eating to look a certain way. Even though I was like very interested in like eating what's healthy for me, I kind of, I had a disordered relationship with food, and that I would use it to control how I looked on the outside. Um, and so I started I remember being in my kitchen when I was like 15 or 16 years old, and I was in the kitchen cabinet looking for a snack. And my father made a comment because I was always choosing something so healthy. And I would analyze a nutrition facts label every time I would look at a food, because I'm like, what is it that I'm putting in my body? While that can be a good practice, I took it to the extreme. Like I would just analyze the sodium content, the cholesterol, the calories, like things that really shouldn't matter for a 15 or 16-year-old. And I was analyzing that over. I was asking myself the wrong question. I was asking myself, what is this? How is this going to make me look when I eat this food, rather than how am I going to feel?
Hmm.
And I was looking at the wrong things on the label, right? I was looking at the fat and the cholesterol, things that are important for your health, but I was obsessing over it, and I wasn't thinking about like, oh, what quality of food am I eating? Is this health supporting, mind, body, soul? That's not something you think about when you're 15 or 16, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
all
yeah.
fat is not created equal. So there's good fat and there's
Yes.
bad fat, but fat is just
Mhm.
labeled fat. So you could be looking at something with
Yes.
trans fat in it and thinking, I don't put that in my body. Yep, that's the right decision. But then you could be looking at something like avocado or hummus or something that's got
Mhm.
really healthy fats. And yes, it's going to show up as a high fat content, but that's actually
Oh,
good for you, and you shouldn't be avoiding those foods. So I guess when we get that
absolutely.
education in our childhood, we're not getting told the full picture. Like fats are bad for you, sugar's bad for you, carbs are
Yes.
bad for you. Like, but there's good carbs and bad carbs, and there's good fats and bad carbs,
Absolutely.
and we're not taught that when we're younger. I'd really love to know though, like, what were your
Mhm.
eating habits like when you were a child, so like so much younger in your childhood compared to when you got to 15? Like, was there a drastic
Ooh.
change, or were you
Yeah,
quite
that's a
active?
great question. It was a drastic change, but there's tidbits of how my eating behavior was as a child that carried over into how I ate as a teenager and into early adulthood years. When I was at the dinner table, as a lot of kids my age, were told to, clear your plate, eat everything on your plate, even if you were, full. It just was a practice that you did, and I couldn't leave, the dinner table unless my plate was full. And parents do that because they're trying to help you, encourage you to eat everything on your plate, be be satisfied, be balanced, make sure you're having your vegetables alongside the meat, alongside the starch. At that age, you don't know that. Your brain subconsciously is picking up on the fact that you like have to eat it all, eat it all, eat it all, right? So I definitely think that influenced the way I ate when I was a teenager because if I didn't eat everything, then I would feel like I'm restricting myself. And it just caused this like disordered view on the food quantity, and food quality.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
like, I'm very mindful of this as a parent, obviously, because
Hmm.
we are brought up to be like, don't waste the food. There's other kids starving in other countries, and you need to make sure you
Hmm.
finish everything. And so,
Hmm.
when you have to force yourself to finish your plate, you almost have to override your body's natural signals. Like your body's saying, "I'm full. I feel a bit sick, even. I'm getting to the point of tipping," but you're overriding those signals, and eventually, your stomach will come to accommodate having to fit in that amount of food, and so you stop hearing those signals. Like your body's not speaking to you anymore because you're always overriding them. And it's so
Hmm.
important, I feel, for children especially, to be given the bodily autonomy to listen to their bodies, so that if they're full they can say, like, I am
Yes.
full and I'm done. And also,
Hmm.
like, we regiment so much about the times of day they must eat and how many times they should eat, and it's like, but they should get to decide when they're hungry and
Hmm.
when they want to put food into their bodies. Like, we're not hungry like exactly at the same time, unless you've really trained yourself to obviously like eat at really strict times. But
Absolutely.
that's not how the human body works. Like, you eat when you're hungry and you don't eat when you don't hungry. But I feel like, we have this expectation of children, like, you must be doing things in this routine and you must eat this
Hmm.
much and I tell you how much, and we override all their body signals, but expect that when they're given a bit more freedom, when they're 15 or 16 or
Hmm.
into teen and adulthood, that they suddenly know how to control, like how to listen to their bodies, and they suddenly are just going to be able to regulate themselves, where we never
Right.
gave them a chance to regulate themselves in the first place.
Absolutely.
It's so interesting because I have been very mindful about how that distortion sort of happens, like when you get into your
Hmm.
teenage years, and it obviously starts when you're much younger, and the relationship you build with food as a child. Um,
Hmm. Absolutely.
when did you realize? Because I guess when you're first sort of looking at all the foods and you're trying to, like, you're doing it from a point of view of
Hmm.
health, but when did you realize it was getting to that extreme? Like, how did you sort of figure out, maybe this is like
Yeah.
more severe than, like, I'm doing this too much.
Great question. You know what they say, you don't realize what's going on with you and your habits until you hit rock bottom? Like that was my story. So, and to that, how you do one thing in life is how you do everything. So I was being very micromanagey about the calories I ate, the type of food I ate. And then I realized I was carrying those same habits to other aspects of my life. So if, for example, I would start working out and I felt like a half an hour wasn't enough, so I would have to work out an hour, even 2 hours
Mm.
on some days. And that was when I was at my very lowest. I felt like I had to control my habits, control my external world, change and keep doing all these different things to feel good on the inside. Reverse psychology, it's really about starting from the inside first in your mindset. So exercise was definitely one area of my life. And then I was also being very obsessive, all or nothing with my habits in regards to studying in school. For example, I'd be cramming in, for example, early on in college, I would study for like 16 hours a day. Don't ask me how that's possible. I couldn't tell you. But then if I wasn't, then I wasn't studying at all. I was like this very all or nothing approach. And I realized, I'm like, wow, like how is I had to sit back and really think about how is my eating behavior really affecting my entire life.
Mm.
It's taking over my entire life. I had no mental space or physical freedom to do things. I didn't feel like I could go hang out with my friends because I felt held back by my behaviors. So it really was kind of like that ball and chain on my ankles.
And when was the moment, or I guess, like, at that age, like, what tools did you have to your disposal to be like, I need to do something about this? Or is it about going and
Mhm.
asking for help? Like, I guess there will be
Mhm.
people listening, or if there's younger people listening, sort of thinking, I might be able to recognize my problem, but I have no idea how to go about getting support or help to be able to sort of sort it out.
Yeah, I think it honestly comes down to like just self-compassion and just loving yourself where you are and knowing that like even if you have some issue you're struggling with, like it's okay. Everyone does, everyone has their thing and you're not alone. And yeah, it does require you to maybe speak up and ask for help. And I wish I did that sooner because it came to a point where everyone around me was noticing things but me. Or I would know it, but I would just hide it, right? My parents would say things like, oh, wow, like you really didn't eat much today, or you just ate a grapefruit and then you went off for the day and went about your day and that's all you had for breakfast. And I would just be like, yeah, I'm not hungry. Right. I would, cover up my habits with things like that. And Like I said, it hit rock bottom. After a while, people nudging me and encouraging me. I at first took it very, put up that wall, put up that defense, but I realized it's like people out there are really trying to care for me and look out for me, where I couldn't be that person for myself. So it does require a little bit of, sitting with yourself and just asking yourself the tough questions like, is this health supporting mind, body, and soul? Um, should I get help? And, the answer would be yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. And is there
Yeah.
anything that I guess like in the approach in the way that people were trying to help you,
Mhm.
but maybe in the beginning
Mhm.
that was sort of falling on deaf ears because you're in your own sort of journey and you're sort of not open to hearing those things. Is there anything that you think could have helped you, or is there a different approach that anyone might have been able to take to maybe like get you to listen or like take notice a bit sooner? Because I'm wondering about it from your point of view. Like what is it that you might have needed to hear that maybe you weren't hearing that would have actually helped you come out of it maybe slightly sooner than you did?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, you know what? I think when I put up that wall, I thought everyone was going to try to change me, right? Because it's like when you have either a disordered relationship with food or just not a healthy way of being, you kind of just back yourself into a wall and you put up that defense. I think I would just. Sorry, you're gonna have to repeat the question. I just completely forgot what your question was. You're gonna have to cut that part out.
That's all right, no problem at all. Um, so yeah, I'm just interested to know from your point of view, like, is there any approach that any adult in your life could have taken, or a different way that they could have spoken to
Mhm.
you that maybe you would have allowed yourself to hear that message slightly sooner? Because I'm just thinking from a parent's point of view, like what could we do to sort of speak out to in a way that isn't going to overwhelm you, isn't going to stress you out, isn't going to make you feel like you're being challenged, but that
Mhm.
it's supportive and that someone's there to help you.
Yeah, great question. I think it's really just about meeting you at your own level. Like when I was younger, you look up to your parents, you look up to older people, and you kind of put up this wall and this defense. And but I think if my parents maybe just came at it in a way where they were more trying to meet me at my own level, like I see you, I hear you, how are you feeling? You can speak to me at any point. Like, and don't get me wrong, they did do these things, but I think it's just more of like rather than trying to get me to do something or change my habits, rather sit me down and ask me how I feel. Because it's like we can identify with our emotions. We can't really we don't really want to think about changing our behavior when our emotions, our belief systems aren't in check, aren't in alignment with that, right? So I think if
Yes.
they came at it more in a way that was just more compassion and really more of just that energetic vibration of just sitting down with your kid and just the complete love, the complete self-care, the I see you, I hear you. If there's anything going on in your life, like I'm an open book kind of a thing. And that's when the kid will start talking. Mhm.
Yes, and I really do agree with that because that I see you, I hear you thing is so important, I think, for healing because it's like I don't
Yes.
judge you. Like I'm just here and I understand what you're going through and or I'm trying to and I'm empathetic and I'm here to provide the support even if I don't know exactly what to do, but I'm here on your level without judgment to provide the support that you need if and when you're ready to like open up. Like you don't have to tell me right now, but whenever you want to, like
Absolutely.
you can come to me and you can tell me what you need. And I guess like as parents, that's like what we are striving for in our relationship with our kids because I really do sort of think about the teenagers. My kids are still very young, they're 6 and 3, but
Mhm.
I'm thinking about when I'm building my relationship with them now, like when I have all their affection and they can't get enough of you. I want to
Yeah.
build that relationship so when they're teenagers and they can't stand me, that they're still willing to come to me if they need something because they know that that undying sort of like the connection's there and the love's there and the support's there and there's not going to be judgment if they do fall down and if they do need help with something. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
just coming back to sort of like the the sort of food side of things because I guess you touched on something very important there. Like it's not as simple as just saying I'm being really obsessive about my food, so now I need to just stop obsessing about my it's not just like a behavior change, right? It's very emotional. So could you speak to
Mhm.
us about the emotional side of that, like what emotions and what anxiety comes with trying to change the behaviors that you had in terms of I'm in a pattern and this is my holding pattern and this is where I feel, even if it's not healthy, this is where I feel comfortable. What emotions come with trying to change and break out of that pattern?
Oh my God, so many because it's like you have the devil angel on your shoulder. You have your ego that's like, no, this is you stand by your beliefs. Like, no, this is the way I am. This is how I identify. I'm gonna do this because I've always done this. And then you have, the angel that's like, your ego, your intuition part of you, right? The part of you that's saying, hey, is this really good for you? Is this really supporting you? Look at what this is causing you and your results. A ton of emotions in regards to anxiety, stress, when that arose and that anxiety stress came to be because, I wasn't doing what I should, I wasn't listening to my intuition, I wasn't taking care of myself. And that just came over after a while, pushing those emotions down, because that's what we tend to do, right? When something's uncomfortable and we don't want to admit things, we just push these emotions down. It came to a point where I got depressed. I had depression. And after a while of dealing with depression and again, putting up that wall, not wanting to get help, um, I spiraled out of control. I would wake up, in the middle of the night with like nightmares and panic attacks. That's really like should be a wake up call, right? And that was my wake up call. It's when I realized I was thrashing out in the middle of the night, and I was just completely angsty. I didn't even recognize myself. So, alongside getting support and people telling me like, I'm here for you. I think, if you ever need to talk, I'm here for you. And I realized, yeah, I need to ask for help. I need to let go of this ego of like, I'm trying to do it all. I need to look into therapy. And that's ultimately what I did. And I actually did go on anxiety medication short term. But at the same time, I was learning more about behavior change, and we can't just keep changing action with action. Like, our external world won't change unless we do on the inside. So I really took a huge deep dive into mindset work, right? And I was learning all about like, why do some people get certain results and then others don't? And that changed my life. And I learned that like, you actually have to tap into your mindset and change your thoughts, your inner dialogue, what you're saying to yourself. That will eventually change your beliefs. And when your beliefs change, your actions change, your behaviors, and then your outcomes, your results. It's really like the work backwards, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and how powerful would that have been if we had been taught that in our childhoods? Like we had been taught that it's your beliefs and then you work on this and this is how you build yourself. Like I feel like there's so many things that you sort of learn in retrospect and you think, I wish I knew those things when I was younger. So I could have applied them to
Hmm.
situations. I could have learned how to sort of like work my way through a
Absolutely.
situation and maybe get the support I needed earlier. So how did you first encounter, like, how did you encounter mindset work? How did you like stumble upon this?
Oh, that's a great question. It's like it's a two-sided journey because I was also trying to figure out myself like how to change. And then when I got into the corporate world, I became a health and nutrition coach. I was working with a lot of clients and the chronic disease aspect, who had diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, things like that. And well, many people were motivated to change. So they would say things like, I know what to do. It's just about doing it. And if I had a penny for every time someone said that, like I'd be rich. But don't get me wrong, like we all have things that we want to do, but we don't do it. And it's like this invisible cloak that's on us. And it's like, why can't we move the needle? Honestly, the secret is it's your mindset. It's all mindset first. And as a health coach, I did it all wrong in the beginning. I was trying to help people. I'm like, well, just do this, just do that, and it wasn't working. And people would try these fad diets and things like that. And after a while, they saw results at first, but then they hit a plateau. They would lose out on their results. They would gain the weight back, and it just after trying, it just wouldn't work. When I found out about mindset and that we'll never see the results on the inside unless we first believe that we can and work on our thoughts. I started using that in my practice as a nutrition coach. I started using that in my own world. I was able to actually heal my relationship with food. And then my clients were finally able to see results that they've been yearning for so long.
And it is so powerful because
Yeah.
if it was as simple
Yeah.
as we just need to take this action, we'd all be
Yeah.
doing it, right? Like if we wanted it,
Mhm.
we'd be doing it. And for so many things, not just health, but like in business, in your career, in success, in your
Mhm.
relationships, if it was as simple as just take the action, most of us don't actually struggle with taking the action, like unless we've tried so many times and then we have limiting beliefs and whatever it might be. But if it's
Mhm.
just you need to take this action and then you can do this thing, most of us are able to do that. But there is something that there's self-sabotage, there's limiting beliefs, there's all these things that come into play that even when you make progress, you are then knocked back 2 or 3 steps because you've got to do that inner work first. There's something blocking you
Right.
from going beyond where in your mind you feel you can be now. But
Absolutely.
I'm interested because so you chose health and nutrition, like you chose to go into there. So was that partly because of the disordered eating, or like how did that come about, like that interest and that like choosing that as a career?
Yeah, I mean, it was both. It was I was interested in health and what it did to the body and how it can make you feel, but at the same time, I was struggling. It was like a catch-22. I was struggling with understanding what it really meant to be healthy. And so I wanted to learn about that for myself and for other people. And then that led into me, diving into mindset work and becoming a mindset coach too, because it isn't just about eating certain foods. It's just about what you say to yourself every day and how you treat yourself. And I've come across so many people that just don't have that self-compassion, or they don't believe that they can be a certain way. And so they self sabotage with their habits. Well, I'm just blank anyway, so I'm just going to eat this cake. And what does it matter? You know?
And what would you say to people who are finding themselves in that sort of cycle? Because this is a really common cycle, and especially for
Mhm.
women, right? Emotional eating is a big part of it. And you sort of think, right, I'm going to be really good. I'm going to do all these things. I've lost a kilo. I've lost 3. I've lost 5. Oh, I'm doing really well. Someone even gives you a compliment, and it almost makes you then go and eat a piece of cake because you're like,
Mhm.
well, I'm making progress. I'm getting noticed. I'm telling, oh, it's fine. I can just have this. And then you sort of go down a spiral. And it's so common, like, you see it everywhere. So what can people do to sort of break this pattern and get themselves out of that, the holding pattern of taking some steps forward and then going back again?
That's a great question, because that goes all back to like motivation. It's like when we reach our goal, our motivation levels go down because we got it right. And then when we're far away from our goal, our motivation levels go up because we're looking to get something. So it's just realizing, first of all, having that awareness over that pattern. And then second of all, making goals. We have to kind of trick our mindset. We have to, I don't know if you've ever heard of tiny habits. BJ Fogg, he's a
Yeah.
behavior psychologist. Yeah, he has this book out called Tiny Habits, and I love his approach on changing and keeping sustainable habits, because a lot of us tend to set overarching goals that are just too big and it just seems so far away in the future. Our minds, and the part of our minds, like our subconscious mind that is responsible for habit forming, is like, oh yeah, right, like you're not going to
That's
achieve that. Plus it's far in the future, so okay, we're gonna wait until we work on that until later on. So you have to start, in order for you to trust yourself, in order for the habit forming part of your mind called the subconscious mind to trust yourself, you have to start very, very small. And when you achieve a goal and you're looking to maintain it, okay, it's like literally keep that tiny habit. What's this one thing I can do tomorrow, this week, that will keep me maintaining this goal, for the long run? For example, I have some people who are honestly looking to eat more fruits and vegetables. Once they do include more in their diet, they're like, yeah, I'm good. All right, I can have this, this, and this, and let things kind of go. Like, it doesn't matter if I eat this cake. Well, it doesn't, but you want to make sure you're maintaining this habit. It's like, well, they're like, okay, my tiny goal is that I will make sure when I write out my grocery list for the next week, I will put down, like this many servings of vegetables, and they just keep that consistency.
Yeah, and that's a
Yeah.
really great tip, I think, because there is this expectation, like, if I'm going to get
Hmm.
healthy, I'm going to go like all in. I'm going to do like 3 workouts a week. I'm going to like clean out my
Hmm.
cupboard. And it's like, whoa, your body is just like, that is a lot of change. And I don't feel safe with this because we're not used to
Hmm.
this. Like, this is not what we normally do. So it's like, week 1, maybe you're going to add 1 extra piece of fruit into your day
Hmm.
every single day. And you just do that every single day for a week. And then maybe week 2, it's like, right now I'm going to add a veg and a fruit into my day. And you just like build upon the progress that you're
Yeah.
making. And when one habit becomes normalized, you can then add in some change. But just going like, I'm going to add 5 pieces of fruit and I'm going to go swimming 3 times a week and I'm going to go running on a Saturday. It's like, whoa, that is that
Yeah.
is a lot of change, and your body does not feel comfortable with it. And I think
Mhm.
one of the patterns that I've come to learn is, no matter what it is you're doing, even if you're shifting career or you're shifting business or you're trying to up level, whatever you're working on, you need to make your body feel that it's safe first. Your body and your mind have to feel that you're
Mhm.
safe
Mhm.
before you can take any step forward. Because if you haven't
Yeah.
reassured your mind, like, everything's fine, this is okay,
Yeah.
we want this, we do want this, like, I promise you, we want this, and then you can allow yourself to do it, because your mind will not be easily persuaded. It's actually a really
Mm-mm.
stubborn, quite a
Oh, yeah.
stubborn creature of habit, like loves habit, loves routine, loves
Mhm.
following the same stuff. So I wonder, due to that, like, how long did it take for you to take those steps to sort of like overcome the disordered relationship with food? Like, what sort of time period did you have to work on that over?
That's a great question. I want to say a few months, only because I really had to do a lot of the mindset work and a lot of breaking down the limiting beliefs of who I was. I think I've had certain ways of thinking of myself and identifying with, like, perfectionism, for example. That goes back to the all or nothing, because I was a perfectionist or felt like I had to perfect things. I carried that behavior, that way of being, over into my eating habits. And so I had to go. go deep into my mindset and realize that how I identified, I was just carrying that out into my entire like life and my entire world, and really break that belief system, tell myself that's not who I am and I can change. And I did a lot of that through learning about neuro linguistic programming, like NLP, um, and just actually through meditation and just a lot of the holistic remedies of just, you know, spirituality, just being with yourself, taking that time. Because not a lot of people, honestly, they just go, go, go. They don't have enough time to sit down and reflect and ask themselves the tough questions.
Yeah. And
Mhm,
if someone's sort of struggling with a where do I start sort of approach, like there's
mhm,
there's mindset practices, there's meditation, there's NLP,
mhm.
like where do I start? Where do I start sort of this journey of trying to work with myself or trying to fix my relationship with food?
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess it depends on where that person would be. I think the first thing is asking for help. For me, that was the gateway into realizing I had that control and I had the power and I am at cause in my life and I'm responsible for my change. And for someone who doesn't know where to go first, it is helpful to get help of someone else, whether it is a family member, a friend, someone who's going to direct you to a healthcare professional. For me, it was a therapist at first. Like I said, it's important to get help from someone who knows how to, how to challenge your mindset, but also then taking time for yourself um, and yeah, working on it on your own level because you can get help from someone else, but at the same time, like they don't know everything about you. They don't see all your blind sides. So it's important for you to like really deep dive self care.
And sort of like how, now that you've sort of been able to do that and you've overcome that relationship, sort of how are
Mhm.
you then spreading that to other people? Like what are the ways that people can work with you or learn more about what you do?
Yeah, great question. So I, holistic nutritionist turned mindset and success coach and life coach, all the modalities. But I help clients work on their subconscious mind, which is the part of the mind that's responsible for forming identity and habits. And so um, I offer my services as a mindset coach. You can find me at charlenevalentine.com. And I help people. It's kind of a journey. Like I said, it's a journey that I took myself through, which is that self compassion and that self love first, but then also really challenging the limiting beliefs and then reinstating positive new ones. Because we're not stagnant people. We're always changing. We can become anything we want. We can think anything we want at any time, but sometimes it just takes the help of someone else.
Yeah, and I think especially when you can't see yourself like totally clearly in that situation, because we have a perception of ourselves but other people outside of us can see us like so much more clearly.
Hmm.
And if you do NLP, then you understand that you can do that from a third position. You can almost see yourself from outside yourself and try and sort of understand what you're going through, but it's not always easy to do that, like actually
Hmm.
separate yourself from the situation. So it's always helpful to get the insight and get the input of somebody else who I would say has been there, so really can understand where you're coming from, what you're dealing with, is not going to judge you, can be compassionate, can be open, can share their own struggles so that you don't feel like you're alone. And then
Yeah.
B has the expertise and has the knowledge and is able to really take you and say, look, I have a roadmap. Like there is a way that you can get through this, and you have to just trust that process. And if you follow, you
Hmm.
will be able to sort of like, there is hope and there is like light at the end of the tunnel. Because we can often, whenever we're suffering from anything, this can be a physical ailment, this can be mental, emotional, whatever it might be, we can, I think sometimes it always feels like you are the loneliest person in the world. Like I am the only
Yes.
person suffering this. It's me, and I'm
Hmm.
having to deal with all of this, and nobody else has been through this before. And that's why it's so important to share these stories, because the more of these stories we share, the more that people understand that, oh, so I'm not the only one, and there are other people that have been through this, and they've not just been through it, they've overcome it, and now they're living like
Hmm.
amazing lives, and
Absolutely.
they're making great impact, and they've gone on to do amazing things. And I think that is what provides so much hope to people when they hear these stories. It's like, this is not the end of the road for me. Like I don't have to be
Right.
stuck here. I'm not
Hmm.
the only one that's ever had to encounter this. And what her story resembles mine, or his story resembles mine, and finding the nuggets that will help you. um
Absolutely.
I think it's been so interesting to sort of like deep dive into this side of sort of healing, because it is a really prevalent
Mm.
and growing issue as well. I think like more and more teenagers are dealing with this, and it's not just girls. You know, boys deal with this as well, and we need to provide the support and the information so that we can help them. Do you have any sort of last words of like support or wisdom that you'd like to leave the audience with today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, yeah, knowing that you're not alone in whatever you're going through. Honestly, if I were to talk to my young self, I would just say it's okay. You're gonna get through it. And just trust yourself. We just lose trust and we rely on so many quick fixes to make us feel good. Just trust that you have the power and trust that you have the option to change for the long run, and also to just trust your gut. If you know something's off, like I did when I first began this healing journey, I had the red flags and I didn't listen to it right away. And I would just say, just listen to that right away and trust that wherever it leads you, it's chances are it's going to lead you to your path of healing.
Yeah, that's great
Yeah,
advice. Thank you so much, Charlene. It's been a pleasure
you're
to
so
have you on the
welcome.
show. And if anyone would like to learn more from Charlene or follow her, then all the links will be in the show notes. And if you'd like to catch more episodes of the Back to Health podcast, then you can catch those links in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again in another episode very soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you would like any of the links or the show notes, you can follow them in the description below. And for more episodes of the Back to Health podcast, please be sure to follow us on YouTube, or you can follow us on Spreaker, where we host our podcast. Thanks again, and I look forward to joining you for another episode of the Back to Health podcast. Until then, stay healthy, stay happy, and stay informed.